Kicked out as a teen for false rumors spread by my brother years later. Parents see my success and demand money after they abandon me. I am a 28-year-old woman with a twin brother. Growing up, we experienced very different treatment from our parents. They genuinely seemed convinced for some reason that my brother was destined for greatness, while I was labeled the so-called black sheep, simply because I was more interested in sports and making new friends than focusing solely on studying. They constantly compared us, which was demoralizing and damaged my self-esteem from a young age. As a child, I had to watch my brother have extravagant birthday parties with his friends, while I was treated like an afterthought. He often had sleepovers, yet I was never even allowed to invite my friends over. To be honest, I loathed every minute of my childhood. The only person in the family who seemed to care about me was my grandmother. Whenever she visited, she brought me my favorite chocolates and occasionally slipped me a few dollars so I could treat myself later. As the years passed, this blatant favoritism toward my twin brother gradually turned into emotional abuse directed at me. My parents openly mocked my grades and belittled my hobbies. No matter how hard I tried, I could never meet their expectations of being the perfect child. Even though I was good at sports, they barred me from participating in extracurricular activities because they wanted me to focus only on academics, just like my brother. It was frustrating, and as a child I felt completely helpless. Later, during my sophomore year, I was grounded yet again. This time for having Snapchat on my phone. I had done nothing wrong. Like any teenager, I had downloaded it to stay connected with my friends. However, according to my parents, this was a serious offense and a breach of their trust because they had forbidden me from communicating with friends. They completely lost control, throwing my belongings around the room. Then they removed my door from its hinges, telling me I would have no privacy as long as I lived under their roof. Watching my parents treat me this way, my twin brother didn't support me. Instead, he made things worse. The toxic environment created by our parents allowed him to take advantage of the situation. He developed a pattern of lying about me, falsely accusing me so he could escape blame for his own actions. If he stole something, he would easily shift the blame onto me. And my parents, already inclined to believe the worst about me, accepted his lies without question. He would also demean me in front of my friends at school and mock my appearance. Despite everything, I had a wide circle of friends at school because I was approachable and open. My twin, however, struggled socially, and he began to resent the fact that I could easily connect with people while he, as an introvert, felt awkward. This jealousy reached a breaking point during our 14th birthday. No one showed up for him, while my friends took me out for ice cream, and I had a genuinely good day. This only fueled his anger. To get back at me, my brother started spreading false rumors at school, portraying me as a spoiled brat. He went as far as accusing me of physically abusing him at home. Without my knowledge, he escalated things even further by fabricating evidence. He would intentionally hurt himself, giving himself black eyes or bruises, and then show up at school displaying these injuries as proof of my supposed violence. When our parents questioned him, he would lie and claim the injuries came from harmless activities like playing football with friends. Eventually, these lies began to spread, and people started believing his version of events. It didn't take long before whispers circulated throughout school, and even my friends began to look at me differently. At first, the changes were subtle. Friends who once talked to me in the hallways became distant, and invitations to hang out became rare. It felt like a switch had been flipped, and people were suddenly hesitant to associate with me. One day, I finally gathered the courage to ask my former best friend why things had changed. She opened up and told me that my twin brother had been spreading rumors about me. She explained in detail the lies he had been telling everyone, accusing me of things I had never done. I was shocked to hear her words. The feeling was a mix of disbelief and betrayal, as if the ground beneath me had given way. My brother, someone I had grown up with, was spreading lies about me, accusing me of things I would never even dream of doing. It was a betrayal that cut deep, leaving a knot in my stomach and a heavy heart. I confronted my brother the day after school, but he chose to ignore me. I begged him to stop lying about me, but he just smirked and told me that I deserved to rot alone. I was at a loss for words, because his lies and behavior were starting to scare me. I wanted to talk to my parents, but I was afraid they would believe him over me. The isolation stung, especially because I had always been open to making friends. It felt like my brother's jealousy-fueled lies were tearing down the connections I had built over the years. Teachers also began to catch wind of the rumors. It was a surreal experience, as if I were living in a parallel reality, where my true self was overshadowed by the malicious story created by my own twin. The lies had grown beyond mere teenage gossip. They were now shaping how people truly perceived me. The nasty rumors quickly reached my principal, and then my worst nightmare came true. The principal immediately called me and my brother into his office, along with our parents, to discuss the allegations. I sat there, my heart pounding, as the principal demanded the truth. I hoped my brother would finally come clean, but instead he doubled down on the lies. He openly told the principal that the rumors were true and portrayed me as a bully who beat him when our parents weren't around. I couldn't believe it. Shock washed over me as he continued spinning this twisted story about how I was angry at him for receiving more love from our parents. It was all lies, but he stuck to them relentlessly. My mom began to cry as she listened to him, holding on to him like he was some kind of hero. My dad tried to comfort him, telling him it was brave of him to speak up and that he would make sure nothing ever happened to him again. I tried to defend myself, pleading with the principal that it was all made up. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of accusations, desperately trying to reach the surface, but my brother kept insisting that I was an angry, violent person who took out my frustrations on him every day. My mom's tears continued as she clung to him, casting accusing looks at me. It felt like I was fighting against a wall of belief built on his fabricated story. The principal reprimanded me harshly, saying the school did not tolerate bullying and that these were grounds for suspension. I pleaded with him not to suspend me, but he shook his head, saying he couldn't let it slide. Tears streamed down my face as I begged him, trying to explain that I had done nothing to my brother. But the principal firmly told me that I would be suspended for 10 days, so others could see this as an example not to bully anyone. It hit me hard and I broke down, practically begging him to reconsider. Angry and embarrassed, my parents dragged me out of the principal's office. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to defend myself and make them understand, but they refused to listen. We left the school, my heart heavy with frustration and humiliation. When we got home, things took a drastic turn. Out of nowhere, my dad started packing my belongings. I was shocked and confused, with no idea what was happening. My mom asked him what he was doing, but he just shouted that he couldn't let me live in the same house as my brother anymore. I fell to my knees, crying, and pleaded with my brother to tell them the truth, but he remained cold and unmoved. My dad continued packing my things, and then threw the suitcase into the foyer. I clung to my dad's legs, begging him not to throw me out. It felt like a nightmare unfolding. He told me that a bully like me didn't deserve to live in his house, and that he would ask his mother, my grandmother, to come and pick me up if she wanted to take me. It felt like the world had collapsed beneath me. I stood there in shock, surrounded by my belongings scattered across the foyer, having been kicked out of my own home. Eventually, my grandmother arrived. She gathered all my things and helped place them in the car. She helped me into the passenger seat and made sure I had my seatbelt on before walking toward my parents' front door. She rang the doorbell, and when my dad opened it, she began yelling at him for treating me this way, with stern determination. She warned him that if he ever approached me or tried to contact me again, she wouldn't hesitate to involve the police or CPS, since what he had done to a child like me could potentially land him in jail. My mother, attempting to deflect the blame, told her that it was my fault. However, my grandmother wasn't having any of it. She stood her ground, defending me and emphasizing that I was just a child who didn't deserve to be treated in such a heartless manner. That was the first time in my life I truly felt how powerful my grandmother was. She didn't back down to my parents, and unlike them, she trusted me. Eventually, we drove away, leaving behind my home, the only place I had ever known. I can't even begin to describe the pain I felt during that time. I remember crying endlessly on the bed and refusing to eat, no matter how much my grandmother urged me to. I told her everything my brother had done, and she was just as shocked. She reassured me that she believed my side of the story, and I was grateful that I had at least one person who stood by me. When my 10-day suspension ended, the thought of returning to school felt like walking into a lion's den. As I stepped into the familiar hallways, the faces of my classmates said it all: judgment, whispers, and sidelong glances. The weight of the false accusations still lingered in the air. Meanwhile, my brother completely ignored me, acting as though I didn't exist. He had become friends with people who believed his version of events and saw him as the victim. No matter how much I tried to explain my side of the story, no one listened. I became an outcast, branded with a false label that followed me everywhere like a shadow. In the classroom, the cafeteria, and the corridors, the looks I received were filled with disdain and mistrust. I became a loner. I kept my head down, attended all my classes, ate lunch alone, and went straight home. I had no friends, and it felt like no one wanted me there. Throughout all of this, my parents never once called to check on me. My grandmother constantly reminded me that none of this was my fault and that life would eventually get better. I graduated high school with good grades and looked forward to college, hoping for a fresh start. It was only when I left for college that I truly experienced what freedom felt like. For the first time, no one was watching over my shoulder, comparing my grades, or competing with me. I met people and formed friendships with like-minded individuals. Despite the emotional and physical scars I carried from my family and peers, I focused on moving forward and making the most of my college experience. During this time, I discovered my talent for content writing. I had always wanted to be a writer, but I wasn't sure if it was a sustainable career, so I had set that dream aside. However, to earn some extra money, I started working as a freelance writer. I signed up on various freelancing platforms, which helped me secure projects from prominent clients. Slowly, I began building a portfolio of my work. Throughout college, I maintained this side hustle and never asked my parents for financial support. After graduating, instead of pursuing a corporate job, I realized I could make content writing my full-time career. I was doing well, thanks to multiple clients and long-term professional relationships that brought me consistent projects. Building a legitimate freelancing career not only made me financially independent, but also gave me the freedom to travel the world as a digital nomad. Traveling helped me heal from my past, even though it wasn't easy. I saved as much as I could and took a chance on myself. Over the years, I have seen so much of the world, and yet there is still so much left for me to explore. The only person I truly considered family throughout all of this was my grandmother, and I adored her deeply. She was very sad when I moved out, but she understood that I needed to build a life of my own. Despite my busy schedule, I always made time for her. I visited her on weekends, often sharing meals, or simply sitting on the porch, talking about everything from childhood memories to recent events. On weekends, I would spend entire afternoons helping her with household chores, or accompanying her to the local park for a peaceful walk. Recently, I completed one of the most important projects of my career. I can't mention the brand, but I was extremely fortunate to write blogs and product descriptions for them. After completing the project, I asked the team I worked with to leave me positive reviews on my platforms, which they were more than happy to do. I then took screenshots of some of those reviews and posted them on my Instagram, knowing that working with this brand was a huge milestone. As expected, many other content writers reached out to congratulate me on my success, and some even reposted my story to help spread the word. Soon, I started receiving messages from strangers who needed help with their own websites. My relatives noticed this as well, and some of them reached out to congratulate me. Eventually, I was contacted by my college principal. After seeing how well I was doing, he invited me back to speak at a seminar about building a career as a content writer. I was quite nervous since public speaking isn't my strength, but I decided to take a chance and agreed. Standing in front of an audience, sharing my experiences and insights, felt like my life had come full circle. In my speech, I talked about the struggles I had faced and how I worked hard to support myself, despite the challenges. It was a deeply fulfilling experience to empower others and contribute to the growth of the writing community. Some clips from my talk started going viral on Facebook groups as pedo. Plea resonated with my story. It felt rewarding to finally be recognized for my hard work. Last week, I was invited to speak on a local news channel for a show about the benefits of content writing. They wanted me to share my journey and insights with their viewers. I was nervous, but also excited about the opportunity. During the show, I spoke about my experiences, the importance of client reviews, and how a simple appreciation post could open doors to incredible opportunities. Reaching a broader audience and inspiring others in the field was both humbling and exhilarating. When the episode aired, I shared clips from it on my Instagram, proud of being invited to a TV show. This is how my relatives and cousins began to realize how well I was doing in my career. Since my parents had never spoken about me to anyone, they had no idea that I was working with well-known brands and appearing on television. Word quickly spread throughout my family. I assume the interview eventually reached my parents as well, because just a few days later, while I was working on another project with my phone on silent, I missed 6 calls from my mother. When I finished my work and checked my phone, I was shocked to see her name. It had been years since she last contacted me. After all, that silence, I couldn't understand why she was calling. Hesitantly, I called her back, and she picked up immediately. I asked if everything was okay, and she began congratulating me. My father, who was likely sitting beside her, joined the conversation. He started asking about my life and well-being, and I answered without thinking much of it. It didn't seem unusual at first, until they began asking how much I was earning. I told them it was none of their business. My father responded that we were family, so I shouldn't feel hesitant to share my income. I simply told him that I was doing well financially. Hearing that, my mother began talking about how difficult their life had become recently, which immediately made me suspicious. This is essentially how the conversation went. Mom, we are retired now, and we've been wanting to renovate the house for a while. It's not in the best condition, but we have no savings left. Me. Okay. Mom, your success has given us hope. After watching your TV interview today, we thought maybe you could help us by paying for the renovations. Dad, after all, we're family. You shouldn't hesitate to share some of your earnings with us. We could really use your help. Me, are you serious? Why are you asking me for money when you haven't even spoken to me for years? I don't know what made you reach out now, and while I appreciate the congratulations, I'm not going to help you in any way. After hearing this, my mother began accusing me of being selfish and said that I needed to support them as family. My father added that as my parents, they deserved to be taken care of, and that this was the least I could do. I was so angry that I wanted to give them a piece of my mind. Then I suddenly got an idea. Rather than just arguing, I decided I should teach them a lesson they would never forget for thinking they could take advantage of me after everything they had done. So I told my parents that I was willing to help them, but only if they agreed to my demands. My dad curiously asked what those demands were, and without hesitation, I laid them out. If they wanted my help, they had to publicly admit in front of our family and friends that my brother was the mastermind behind the hurtful rumors that had damaged my reputation. I wanted them to humiliate my brother the same way they had humiliated me by believing his lies and manipulation in front of everyone. I wanted them to take accountability for their actions and acknowledge the pain they had caused. Hearing my condition, my dad began questioning whether such an admission was really necessary. My mom said it was completely unnecessary and suggested we could discuss things privately without involving others. But I stood my ground. This condition was non-negotiable. It was a prerequisite for any help I would ever offer them. As the tension escalated, my dad raised his voice, asserting his authority as my father, and insisting that it was my duty to help my family in their time of need. My mom, in a last attempt, urged me to do the right thing and help them, reminding me of the years they had spent raising me. I couldn't help but see the irony in their sudden appeal. I reminded them of the past, of how they had kicked me out, and that it was my grandmother who had truly raised me, not them. They grew more agitated, but I firmly told them that if they wanted to have any relationship with me or seek financial help, then the truth had to be acknowledged publicly, and my brother needed to face the consequences of his actions. Since that conversation, my parents have been calling me incessantly, but I've been ignoring their calls. I'm starting to regret even calling them back that day. I would like to know if I would really be wrong if I chose not to help them at all. Update 1. It's been a whirlwind of a week since I last shared my story, and the support and encouragement I've received has been overwhelming. It's comforting to know that I'm not alone during this time. I'm glad that everyone agrees I shouldn't engage with my parents, or even consider helping them after everything they put me through. The reason I gave them that condition was because I knew it was nearly impossible for them to meet it. I know they love my brother too much, and even if they now realize the truth about his lies, they would never put him through what they put me through. Today, my broth. Or send me a nasty message after my parents once again tried to contact me, and I refused to answer. This is what he wrote. Hey sis, it's been a long time since I saw you, and I can tell you that every day without you in my life has been great. I heard mom and dad reached out to you, and that you gave them a crazy ultimatum. They are never going to go through with it, you know that, right? They clearly never loved you, and they will never do anything to hurt me. I admit I lied about you 15 years ago, but it's been a long time since then, so stop being so selfish and move on. You're unmarried and childless anyway, so why don't you help them by paying for their house repairs and renovations? Do the right thing, and be a better daughter. Reading that message felt like a stab to my chest. The audacity to dismiss everything I had been through and the conditions I had set, spoke volumes about his lack of empathy. His attempt to guilt-trip me by emphasizing my unmarried and childless status added another layer of insensitivity. His suggestion that I should prioritize their needs over my own well-being was not only offensive, but also showed how little he thought of me. Fueled by frustration and a strong desire for justice, I decided it was time to take matters into my own hands and reveal the truth that had been hidden for far too long. I sat down and wrote an email to my parents and close relatives, sharing the painful details of my childhood and the unfair treatment I had endured while growing up in my family home. In the email, I described the strict and oppressive environment under my parents' roof and how differently they treated me compared to my twin brother. I also detailed the malicious and completely false rumors my brother had spread about me at school, which had led to serious consequences and damaged my reputation. I explained how my NTH had thrown me out and how, if not for my grandmother, I might have ended up on the streets. Toward the end, I asked everyone to read a message my brother had sent me. I attached a screenshot in which he admitted to lying about me. It was a clear confession, one I hoped would finally expose the truth that had been buried for so long. I sent the email just an hour ago, and I know everything will erupt once my parents and brother read it. I will update you on how my family reacts. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. As expected, my family did erupt after receiving the email. My parents faced criticism from relatives who had previously been unaware of the extent of the favoritism and emotional abuse. Many family members reached out to me, saying they had no idea about any of this, and apologizing for not being there for me. My brother and parents, however, bombarded me with text messages that became increasingly abusive and threatening. I decided to contact a lawyer, who sent them a cease and desist notice. It warned them not to contact me again, and stated that if they did, they would face serious legal consequences. It seems this finally made them stop, as they have not contacted me since. My grandmother believes I did the right thing by telling everyone the truth, and supports me completely. She is the only person who truly matters to me, so I'm grateful to have her by my side. Update 3. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I'm happy to say that things in my life are going well. Professionally, my content writing business has been thriving. Invitations to speak at seminars and podcasts continue to come in, strengthening my reputation in my field. I remain as close to my grandmother as ever. Recently, I took a week off from work to spend quality time with her. She has taken an interest in gardening and has been teaching me about different flowers and herbs in her garden. The time I spend with her, whether sharing meals, having meaningful conversations, or simply enjoying each other's company, has become some of my most cherished memories. My family has not contacted me since receiving the legal notice, and I'm relieved they are keeping their distance. On a personal level, I started therapy to begin healing, and I hope it helps me move forward. I think this will be my final update for now.